Welcome, everyone, to Torah is for Everyone. Welcome to Baruch Shulman and to Miriam Birnbaum and to Jerry Lipstein, Dr. Jerry Lipstein. I welcome you and look forward to what we can see this evening, what the Torah has to say to us. And more, the Torah has so much to say to us because of what's going on in the world. So let's take a look, because believe it or not, we're going to find many, many secrets right in this parsha. So I'm going to turn here. Let me close here. All right, so we're going to begin. It's called Vayera, and they translate Vayera as the Lord appeared to him. It says, and this was Abram. Abram had just been circumcised. He circumcised himself, his whole household, his 13-year-old son Ishmael, which is why the Arab nations are circumcised at the age of 13. But he himself was 100. He was circumcised, and he was more than 100, I think. Anyway, they didn't have any anesthetic. So imagine the pain. So, and now the rabbis say that 3 days later, he was visited by these men, and the Lord appeared to him by the terebinths, by these special trees of Mamre, as he sat in the door in the heat of the day. Now, if anyone knows how hot it is in the summertime in Israel, you can know how it really was the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and he looked, and behold, 3 men, shalosh anashim, stood near him. And when he saw them, even with all his pain, the sense of hospitality in the Middle East, you see this also in Spanish countries. You don't see that in Canada or the United States. But here, the hospitality is unbelievably great. He ran with all his pain. He ran to meet them from the tent door, and he bowed down, v'yishtachaveh, right down to the ground. And he said, "My Lord." Obviously,
sorry, Peggy.
Yes.
Just one thing, could I ask? Do you know why the rabbis say it was 3 days afterwards? Do you know what they base that on?
No idea.
Do you have any thoughts about it? Like, I mean, just as a fellow student.
I do not know. I never, to tell you the truth, when I heard the rabbi talk about it, some things I just accept. You know, to me, it's important, less important. I'm always looking for principles of things. I don't look for the nitty gritty, but
no, I was just
you can certainly, do a little research on your own and take a look at that. Make these notes for yourself if it's important. That's the beauty of the Torah. There may be somewhere else that it says that. There may have been from before.
Oh, okay.
I looked back and I didn't see that.
Yeah, okay.
Because the last thing that it said, if you go back to the chapter before at the very end, chapter 17, it says here, in the same day that Abraham circumcised, he was circumcised himself and Ishmael, all the men of his house, those born in the house, and those brought with money of the foreigner were circumcised with it. And the very next thing we see is that he's sitting by the tree in the heat of the summer. So they probably figure remember, these chapters were only created much later. In the Torah, everything is connected. So sometimes something follows directly, and sometimes there's years in between. So they're taking it in that context. From my,
I think that some could say that in 3 days, one is starting to feel a little bit better.
Actually, it's the opposite. On the 3rd day is the worst, according to the things in the Torah, and according to what doctors will say. It's the 3rd day, the pain is at the highest. And that's why, when we read that when Dinah was raped, comes later, when Dinah was raped and her brothers, the 2 boys, Levi and Simeon, went and attacked them. He convinced all the men to be circumcised. They waited till the 3rd day, and then they went to attack. It's the worst on that third day. That's
I
why
guess- No, it's okay.
yeah.
No, the only reason I asked is not that I thought in itself it means anything. I just thought that if you said it, there must be some special meaning to it. And so that's all.
Well, you see many things in threes on the third day. That's the only reason I mentioned it was because I remember the rabbi had taught that to us. For me, it doesn't have a deep meaning, but it could mean something much deeper. Remember, there's all the different levels of understanding the Torah.
Yeah.
And he said, "Now, my Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass away, I pray, from your servant." Now he's speaking to, he's addressing one who is probably the leader of the three. So he's addressing one of the men, and he's saying, "Let me get a little water for you. Let me wash your feet and rest under the tree, and I will bring a morsel of bread and calm yourself down, stay your heart," which means relax, and then you can go ahead and for as much as because you came to your servant, and they said, "Do as you have said." So Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah, and he says, "Quick, get 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes, ugot." These are definitely cakes. It wasn't bread. And Abraham ran to the herd and fetched a calf, tender and good, like a really good calf. And he gave it to his servant, who dressed it up, who spiced it. And then look what he does next. He took curds or cheese and milk and the calf which he had dressed and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree, and they ate. So from here, we can see that whole idea of milk and meat, they had nothing to do with what God was ordaining for us. He didn't change his mind later, and all of a sudden, there are 3 places in the Bible where it says you cannot boil a calf in its mother's milk, and all 3 of them had to do with mercy and with staying away from idolatry, like these fertility rites. And they said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he says, "She's there in the tent." And he said, "I will certainly return to you when the season comes again, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son." Now, Sarah heard in the tent door. She was listening, which was behind him. Now, Abraham and Sarah were old. They were well beyond the age of having children. And it says it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. It's funny because it didn't say it ceased to be with Abraham after the manner of men, because we know later on that Abraham will get married again and have many more children. So it was Sarah who could not have any more children. She was in menopause. But Sarah laughed within. "How, after I am so old, will I still have pleasure? My Lord also being old?" She thought that he also was too old, but it wasn't him, it was her. And the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh, saying, 'I can't bear a child because I'm old'? Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Why do you think the Lord said that to Abraham? Why did Sarah laugh? Doesn't he know why Sarah laughed? It reminded me of Adam, when God said to Adam, "Where are you?" He knew where Adam was. When he questions us, he wants us to think. He wants us to come clean. And he knew, and Sarah was listening. "At the set time, I will return to you. And when the season comes around again," meaning in a year, "Sarah shall have a son." But Sarah denied it, saying, "I didn't laugh," because she was afraid. How often has that happened in our life, when we're afraid to admit something that we've done? But God didn't let her get away with it. He said, "Yes, you did laugh." And the men rose up from there and looked out towards Sodom. And Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. And the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do, seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him to the end. Now this is, for me, a really important verse. I have known him, yadati, meaning I have chosen him. I know him intimately, so that he may command his children and his household after him, that they may keep the way of the Lord, to do righteousness and justice, to the end that the Lord may bring upon Abraham everything that he has spoken of him. In other words, if Abraham will need to teach his children and his household and the next generations after him, so that to keep the way derech Adonai. And what is the way of the Lord? To do righteousness and justice. Tzedek u'mishpat. Jerry, are you wanting to say something?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. To the end that the Lord may bring upon Abraham what he promised him. So this is almost like a formula. I mean, we see so much in this one verse. Here we're going to see what Abram is told to do, to teach his children, to teach his household. What's he going to teach him? How did he know what righteousness and justice was at that time? Because the Torah hadn't been written. The 10 Commandments weren't given to Moses yet. But there's something that happens to us at conception. We read that in Bereshit. God breathed his ruach into us. His spirit is within us. We have a divine soul. We have a conscience. We have a consciousness that is filled with righteousness and justice. And this is for every human being. And why did God do that? So that the Lord may bring upon Abraham what was promised. And what was promised? He will make us a great nation, and we will be blessed. Those who bless him will be blessed. Those who curse him will be cursed. And all the nations shall be blessed because of what Abraham was told, what was promised by God. I mean, the whole Bible is in one verse. It's unbelievable. And that's like a formula. And the Lord said, truly, the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah is great. And their sin is so grievous. You know, when I look down at what's happening in the world, how people are crying out, and the sin of the world is grievous. And he says, I'm going to go down to see whether what they've done according to the cry, because they're crying. And and I hear it now. It's come to my ears. And then he's going to check and see, and he'll know. And the men, these are representatives of the living God. These were, some people say that they were angels. Some say they were messengers, but it says anashim, men. So these are messengers. They went towards Sodom. Now, Abraham, he all of a sudden, you see Abraham standing up for these people in a way that he didn't stand up for his son or for his wife or anybody else. He's standing up for these people of Sodom. We would wonder why. Abraham drew near and said, will you really kill all the people, even the righteous, together with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you indeed wipe it away? For the sake of 50 righteous, will you not forgive it? And far be it from you to do this, to slay the righteous with the wicked. So here he's arguing with God. And we all have that right. We can all go to God and talk to him, so that the righteous should be as the wicked. Far be it from you, he's telling God, because he knows it's God's character. Shall not the judge of all the earth do just what is right? And the Lord said, if I find 50 in Sodom, 50 righteous men in Sodom, I will forgive the whole place for the sake of the 50. Imagine how many people were there, and only 50 he would have saved them. Then Abraham continues to negotiate.
That gives us hope for now.
That totally gives us hope for now. And Abraham answered and said, behold, now I've taken upon me to speak to the Lord. I'm just dust and ashes. He's so humble. He knows he's only dust and ashes. He's not proud. Perhaps if there's 5 less than 50, you would save it for 45? And he spoke to him again and said, maybe if you find 40 there. And God said, I will not destroy it for 40's sake. And he goes back to him and he said, please, God, don't be angry. Let me speak. Maybe there'll be 30 there. And God said, okay, I won't if I find 30 there. Look at the patience God has. It's unbelievable. And he said, behold, now I've taken upon me to speak to the Lord. Perhaps there'll be 20 there. And God said, I will not destroy it for the sake of 20. And he said, don't let the Lord be angry. Let me speak one more time. Perhaps only 10. And God said, I won't destroy it for the sake of 10. So the Lord went his way, and as soon as he had left off speaking to Abraham, Abraham returned to his place. Jerry, would you like to read?
Okay, I'll try. And the 2 angels came to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot saw them and rose up to meet them. And he fell down on his face to the earth.
He did exactly what his uncle had done. He saw them, fell down on his face to the earth, according to custom.
And he said, behold now, my lords, turn aside, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and you shall rise up early, and go on your way. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the broad place all night. And he urged them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did take unleavened bread, and they did eat.
What does this tell you? What does this tell you here? When was this? They baked unleavened bread.
And Passover, yeah.
It's Pesach, exactly.
Pesach.
They didn't have unleavened bread at any other time of the year. But here you can see he had his Abraham taught his son, his nephew Lot. He did the things that Abraham had done, maybe not as in the same way, but but definitely hospitality was a thing. And this was the time of Pesach. Okay.
But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both young and old, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot, and said unto him, where are the men that came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them.
What does that mean? We may know them.
Intimacy, sexual, no?
Exactly. These were sodomites. These were men. That was the type of practices. These men were wanted to sleep with these new men who had come.
And Lot went out unto them to the door, and shut the door after him. And he said, I pray you, my brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold, now I have 2 daughters that have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them that is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for as much as they are come under the shadow of my roof.
Can you imagine? Lot giving up his 2 virgin daughters.
That's unbelievable.
But he probably did that because he knew these men were not interested in girls.
Yeah, maybe.
They wanted these men. That was the level of depravity in Sodom.
And they said, stand back. And they said, this one fellow came into sojourn, and he will needs play the judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them. And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and drew near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand and brought Lot into the house to them, and the door they shut. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, hast thou here any besides son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whomsoever thou hast in the city? Bring them out of the place, for we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxed great before the Lord, and the Lord had sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spoke unto his sons-in-law, who married his daughters, and said, up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy the city. But he seemed unto his son-in-laws as one that jested. And when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters that are here, lest they be swept away in the iniquity of the city. But he lingered, and the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him. And they brought him forth, and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be swept away. And Lot said unto them, O, not so, my Lord. Behold, now thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast shown unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest the evil overtake me and I die. Behold, now this city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live. And he said unto him, see, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow the city of which thou hast spoken. Hasten thou, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot came unto Zoar. Then the Lord caused rain upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah, brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he had stood before the Lord, and he looked out towards Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the land went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him. And he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he knew not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he knew not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bore a son, and called the name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger she also bore a son, and called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day.
Does anything stand out from what we've read in this chapter? Because to me, it's just very straightforward. A simple message, just don't look back. If God is telling you to leave and go somewhere else, just keep going, don't look back. I mean, there's a lot more to be learned, but Miriam, anything?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I guess the idea of turning to salt is just like a poetic type of thing.
And yet they say that they have found.
Yes,
yeah. Archaeologists have found a pillar of salt.
Yeah, well, I was there, and supposedly, one of those pillars was her.
Yeah.
The pillar of salt. Yeah.
Right. And it was so evil that the place has not been able to be built up again. It's
right. It's a hot,
the wasteland.
It's a wasteland. It's hot. It's really desolate.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Wow. And Abraham journeyed from there toward the land of the south. It would be from the Negev, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and he lived in Gerar. Then Abraham said of Sarah his wife, she's my sister. Again, he lies about her. This great man of faith. And yeah. Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. That's what Abraham knew he would do. And God said to Abimelech in a dream of the night, came to him in a dream and said, Behold, you shall die because of the woman that you've taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said, Lord, will you slay even a righteous nation? So you see here, king of Gerar, these were not people who believed in God, but God spoke to him, and he spoke back to him. And did he not himself say to me, she's my sister? And she herself said, he is my brother. In the simplicity of my heart and the innocency of my hands have I done this. And God said to him in a dream, yes, I know that in the simplicity of your heart you have done this, and I've withheld you from sinning against me. Therefore, I did not allow you to touch her. So now restore the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and he will pray for you, and you will live. And if you do not restore her, know that you shall surely die, you and all that are yours. And Abimelech rose early in the morning and called his servants, all his servants, and told everything to them. And the men were really afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, "Why have you done this to us? What have I done to sin against you, that you have brought upon me and my kingdom such a great sin? You have done things to me that ought not to have been done." And Abimelech said to Abraham, "What did you see that you have done this thing?" And Abraham said, "Well, it was because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place." That's all Abraham knew. Every nation around him were all pagan nations. So obviously he would have thought the fear of God was not in that place. And it was normal, it was custom that if they saw a beautiful woman, they would kill the husband. But besides, she is my sister. She's the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. So she became my wife. And it happened when God had caused me to wander from my father's house that I said to her, "This is your kindness which you shall show me. Every place we go, tell them that you're my brother, that he is my brother." And Abimelech took sheep and oxen, men and female servants, and gave them to Abraham and restored Sarah, his wife. Look what he had done. He did this, and yet God blessed him anyway. And God blesses who he wants to bless, and he curses who he decides to curse. And Abimelech said, "Behold, my land is before. Live wherever you want." And to Sarah, he said, "Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. It is for you a covering of the eyes of all that are with you, and before all the men you are righted." And unto Sarah he said, "Behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver."
But he's calling her, her brother at this point. He's still calling Abraham her brother.
Yes. "It is for you a covering of the eyes to all that are with you, and before all men you are righted. You are and Abraham prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his maidservants, and they bore children. For the Lord had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife.
But he restored it.
He restored it, exactly. He had closed the wombs, and he restored the wombs. And you see this miracle happening all throughout the history of Israel, the mothers of Israel. Abraham's wife, Sarah, had her womb open. She could not deliver, have a child up to 89 years old. She got pregnant at 90. Then later, Isaac will marry Rebecca. Rebecca won't be able to get pregnant right away. Neither did he. Had to open Rachel and Leah and all the other women. It always said, and God opened the womb. This was the natural sequence of things among, you see later on with the prophet Samuel. Hannah was the mother. She couldn't have a child, and she went and she begged God. She cried in the temple to the point that the Cohen, the high priest Eli, thought that she was drunk because she was praying. Words weren't coming out of her mouth, begging God to give her a child, and finally, God opened her womb, and then later she had many children, but she dedicated Samuel to the Lord. And to tell you the truth, this made me think of Yeshua. Yeshua is for us, for many of us that I know, a very special rabbi, a very special prophet, an anointed Israelite who had a very special role. And usually when the wombs were open, the child had, the children would have a special role to play. And I'm going to be speaking about it this Shabbat, but there have been many myths made up about the birth of Yeshua. And like there was one that was said that I think it was Origen. He was a church father who said that Mary was raped by a Roman soldier whose name was Pantera, and he gave birth. So she gave birth to a bastard son, Jesus, but it was a myth. And, a lot of people believed it at the time. That's why even to today, Yeshua is looked upon as a bastard child among the Jews, the Orthodox Jews. But there's another way of looking at it, and I'm going to be speaking. I'm not going to talk about it tonight, but I am going to be speaking about it on Saturday, on Shabbat. And it was a study done by a rabbi who lives in Argentina, and it was an in-depth study. And if anybody wants to read his whole paper, they can write to me, and I'll be glad to send it to them. But I'll be speaking about this on Shabbat. And the Lord remembered Sarah, as he had said. One thing that we can be sure is that if God says something, he will do it. He is not like we are. He does what he says. And the Lord did to Sarah as he had spoken, and Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age. Now, she didn't conceive from the Holy Spirit. She conceived because she, Sarah, and Abraham had sex, and she had a child at the set time of which God had spoken to them. And Abraham called the name of his son, who was born to him, who Sarah bore to him, Yitzchak, which means laughter, because they both laughed. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac, when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh on account of me. And she said, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse a child? For I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. Then Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Egyptian, whom she had borne unto Abraham, making sport. Now, again, we don't know what that means, but according to our rabbis, they say the way he was treating him was beyond normal. It was almost of a sexual nature. Wherefore she said to Abraham, get rid of the servant woman with her son. For the son of the bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac.
He was bullying him. That's what it was. He was bullying Isaac.
Oh, he was bullying. Okay, that's very possible. Thank you. Now, there's also at that period of time in the Hammurabi Code that if a woman had a child who was not married to the same man, and the first wife did not want this other child to be an heir, to partake of the inheritance with the first child, then they were to be sent away, literally with nothing. And that's Abraham was following the code of the day. But the thing was very grievous in Abraham's sight on account of his son. He loved Ishmael. He did not want this done. And God said to Abraham, don't be grieved because of the lad and because of Hagar, the servant woman. Listen to Sarah, for it's Isaac shall seed be called to you. It's because Sarah and Abraham, when they were married, they were considered one. Isaac would be the promised child. And also of the son of the bondwoman, I will make a nation, because he is also your seed. So you see, there was going to be one who was promised to become the father of the nation of Israel. But Abraham's son Ishmael also had a promise. He would also be blessed. Remember, all who came from Abraham would be blessed. And Abraham arose early in the morning and took bread and a bottle of water, gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder and the child, and he sent her away. And she left, and she went into the wilderness, in the wilderness of Beersheba. But when the water of the bottle was gone, she put the child under one of the shrubs, and she went and she sat far off, about a bow shot, for she said, I can't look at him. I can't see him die. And she sat again over near him, and she lifted up her voice and wept. But God heard the voice of the lad. And the angel of God called to Hagar out of heaven and said to her, what is bothering you, Hagar? Do not fear, for God has heard the voice of the lad where he is. Rise up, pick up the lad, lift him up, hold him close with your hand, for I will make him a great nation. Don't worry, he's also going to be a great nation. And God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water, and she went and filled the bottle with water and gave the lad to drink. And God was with the lad. God was with Ishmael, and he grew, and he dwelt in the wilderness, and he became an archer. He was a strong man. He dwelt in the wilderness of Paran, and his mother took him a wife from the land of Egypt. And it came to pass at that time that Abimelech, who we read before, and Pichol, the captain of the host, spoke to Abraham, saying, God is with you in all that you do. These Gentile kings and Pichol, the captain of his host, spoke. They knew that this God was special. And you can't say it was God of Israel at that time, but he was the only God, the creator of the universe. So swear to me, by God, that you will not deal falsely with me, nor with my son or my son's sons. Here were these Gentile king and the captain of his army, who's begging our God, the God of the universe, and through Abraham, to deal kindly with him. But according to the kindness that I have done to you, so shall you do to me, to the land wherein you have lived. And Abraham said, I will swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of the well of water, which Abimelech's servants had violently taken away. And Abimelech said, I don't know who has done this thing. Neither did you tell me, nor have I heard of it until today. But Abimelech took sheep and oxen and gave them. Abraham took sheep and oxen and gave them to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. And Abraham set 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech said to Abraham, what do you mean with these 7 ewe lambs which you have set by themselves? And he said, these 7 ewe lambs take with your hand, that they may be a witness to me that I have dug this well. Therefore the place was called Beersheba, because it was there that they swore, both of them. So they made a covenant at Beersheba. And Abimelech rose out and Pichol, the captain of the host, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. It's interesting to me that Abraham made a covenant with them, but it doesn't say anywhere that he asked God if this was a good covenant or not. He went to him about Sodom and Gomorrah. He asked of God, but he didn't ask of God about this covenant that he made with this Gentile king and the captain of hosts. And they returned into the land of the Philistines, because later the Philistines, you saw, were enemies of Israel. You know, David and Goliath was a Philistine. And Abraham planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba and called there on the name of the Lord, the everlasting God. And Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines for many days. You know, later we're going to read how we were not to make a covenant with the people in the land because they would be like thorns in our eyes and like thorns in our flesh and in our sides.
Isn't Gaza the land of the Philistines?
I don't know if it's Gaza, to tell you the truth.
Anyway, I have to look that up.
Yeah, it's possible, but I don't know. But it has nothing to do with the modern day Palestinians.
No.
If that's what you're thinking about.
Because
it has nothing to do with
no,
that.
The modern, no. But I mean, that part of Israel isn't that where Gaza is? Like, that's what I thought.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Gaza and Philistines. You know, that's a good thing to look up. Maybe you can look that up, Miriam, while I'm continuing to read, because we're almost finished here. And it came to pass, this is the great test that Abraham is going to go through. Here, Gaza, and no, that's not the same thing. It's Philistines. And it came to pass after these things that God tested Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Hineni, here I am. That expression we'll hear over and over in the scriptures when God is calling us and we are willing to say to him, Hineni, here I am. I remember when I said that to God, Hineni, here I am, Lord, use me. You know, Abraham was not chosen because he was a man of great faith, because we saw that twice he lied about his sister. He was afraid for his life, and you know, he was not perfect, but he was ish tam. He was a man who was wholeheartedly given to God. That's what God wants from us. Hineni is what we need to say to our God, no matter what. Moses said it. Isaiah said it. Many of the prophets have said Hineni. Yeshua said, Hineni, here I am, Lord. And he was willing to he was wholehearted to God right to the death. And God said, take now your son, your only son. It didn't mean he was the only son. It meant he was the chosen son, whom you love, Isaac, and take him to the land of Moriah and offer him there. Moriah is what they call the Mount Moriah, is present day. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's terrible. I wish I had a better memory. And offer him there for a burnt offering upon one of the mountains, which I will tell you of. So, by the way, if anyone feels that they don't have the right to read the Torah because they're not educated enough, I promise you, you are. This Torah speaks to everyone at every level.
Yes.
It's for everyone, Jew and Gentile. These stories are principles for all of us to learn from. And Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, took 2 of his young men with him, and Isaac, his son. And he chopped the wood for the burnt offering. He rose up and went to the place which God had told him. Here we see again on the 3rd day, something about that 3rd day. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place afar off. And Abraham said to his young men, abide there, stay there with the donkey. The lad and I will go yonder, and we're going to go up, and we will worship and come back to you. He knew somehow God would do something. He didn't say, I will come back to you. We will worship and come back to you. He was far into his path of trusting God, and this would be his final test. And Abram took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on his son Isaac. Now his son Isaac here was 37 years old. He wasn't a child. He was 37. So we talked, just like we talked about Abram's faith, we didn't talk about Sarai's faith. She left with her husband twice. Here we see Abraham's faith, but it doesn't talk about Isaac's faith. He carried the wood. He took it in his hand, the fire and the knife, and they went, both of them, together. He didn't fight with his father. And Isaac,
I wonder if he knew at this point.
well, he figured something was going on.
Yeah, it's true. But
And Isaac spoke to Abraham, his father, and said, Father, he said, well, maybe he didn't know completely. And he said, here I am, my son. And he said, behold, there's the fire and the wood. Where's the lamb for the burnt offering? And Abram said, God will provide himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son. So they went, both of them, together. Maybe he didn't realize it to this point, but then you'll see soon.
But look, see how in verse here it says God will provide himself. Now, I think, it's been read to mean that God himself will be the lamb, the Christian, the doctrine. And because it says God will provide himself the lamb.
No, what does it say in the Hebrew?
No, I'm saying I don't believe it's that.
I know, but let's see what it says in Hebrew, because it's easy to see what it says in the English.
Right.
Okay. Ve'omer Abraham Elohim yireh lo haseh leolah. It doesn't say himself. Oh, God, yireh, provide, lo, to him, the lamb for the burnt offering, my son, Beni.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the way it's been translated into English looks like,
it should say God himself will provide the lamb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not God will provide the capital H-I-M.
Exactly. And it's interesting because this is a Hebrew translation. This is not Christian.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, isn't it? So both of them went together, and they came to the place which God had told them of. And Abraham built the altar there. So Isaac is watching. Abraham's building this altar. And then he lays the wood in order, and he binds Isaac, his son. Isaac didn't fight him at this point either. And he laid down on the altar upon the wood. And he lay there as Abraham stretched his hand with the knife, and he took his knife to slay his own son. And the angel of the Lord called to him out of heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. And Abraham answered, Hineni, here I am. He said, do not lay your hand upon the lad. Don't do anything to him. For now I know that you are a God-fearing man, seeing that you have not withheld your son, your special, your singular son, your only son from me. What an unbelievable feat. How far are we? How far will we go to follow what God wants from us? He's not going to ask us something like this, but he may ask us something else. Are we willing to go right to the end? Yeah. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him a ram caught in the thicket by the thorns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered him up for a burnt offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place Adonai Yireh. God has provided, or will provide, as it is said to this day, in the mount where the Lord is seen. And the angel of the Lord, it doesn't say the angel, it says an angel of the Lord, called to Abraham a second time from the heavens and said, I myself have sworn, says the Lord, because you have done this thing and have not withheld your special son, the son that I have chosen, your only son, that in blessing I will bless you. Here's that same blessing again. In multiplying, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven and as the sand which is upon the seashore. And your seed shall possess the gate of his enemies. This is a future prophecy. Even though our enemies come against us in the final analysis, we are, the generations to come will possess the gates of our enemies. And in your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have hearkened, you have listened, you have obeyed my voice. That's when all the nations, not just the nation of Israel, all the nations of the earth. So Abraham returned to his young men. They rose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt in Beersheba. I have friends who live today in Beersheba. And it came to pass after these things that it was told Abraham, behold, Milcah, she has also borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Chesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Yidlaf, and Betuel. And here Betuel begot Rebekah. Here we're going to see the next generation come from Rebekah. These 8 did Milcah bear to Nahor, Abraham's son, and his concubine. Abraham's brother, and his concubine, whose name was Reumah, she also bore Tebah and Gaham, Nahash, Tahash, and Ma'akah. So you see that these men were very busy. I think that's it. This is the last of the readings. Yes, that's the end. You know, it's amazing how every time we read it, we see something more, something more real for us today, that we are those descendants. But how many of us are willing and able to say, Hineni, I'm here no matter what. I am.
Well, that takes it's a process as you go through your life, and as you experience good times and hard times and difficult times, and you learn. Like I can think back many times to different things that have taught me, it taught me when we just say obedience, like what does that really mean? It's really, really wanting to walk with the creator of this whole universe. It sounds so unbelievable, but it can't happen unless you've been touched a little bit, even a little dot of a touch. Like
we've all been touched, Miriam. Every single one of us.
Yeah, you're right. Not been touched.
We've all been touched. We all have the divine spark.
No, that you're right.
But
listen to that touch. Respond
to it and act upon it.
Right,
Action is a big part of, it's like, I remember where it says we all have been given the gift of faith. So really there's nothing to boast about because it's a gift.
No, I meant it that way.
Yeah. But what we do is we take a step of faith. Like if I know that I've been gifted with a good voice, let's say, for instance, but I always have such a bad view of myself that I don't want to use the gift that God gave me to bless others, then I'm missing a very great part of a gift that I've been given. We've all been given something. We all have a role, every one of us. But unless we step into it and because a lot of it is action. A step of faith is action. When Moses was told, step into the sea, Aaron, put the rod in the sea and the sea will part. That's the same with us today. And it's not easy to do. It's easy to hide. Being a Jew isn't a matter of pride. I hear a lot of people there. We're so proud. We're proud to be Jews. What proud? Pharaoh was proud, and look what happened to him. God doesn't want us to be proud. Everywhere in the scriptures, he talks about humility. Abraham was humbled. Moses was one of the most humble men. Yeshua was humble. He would run and hide. He never put himself up on a pedestal and say, look at me, look how great I am. God doesn't want that from us. And that's a hard pill to swallow, because we love, to put ourselves, look at me, look how good I am, look what I did. What a web we weave on this planet. The Torah is not an easy thing to follow. It's not filled with promises of gold and silver and notoriety. It's filled, he says, if my people will humble themselves and turn away from doing the wrong things, then I will heal their land. I will hear their voice. I will hear their cries, and I will hear their land. And we have to really beg God to help us to do that, because it's not within us. Our egos are very strong. En tout cas. Any words of wisdom coming from from my fine feathered friends?
When you see the whole thing, it's almost like a skeleton, like the structure of all of human history. You see evil and good. I mean, I almost see it like a Lord of the Rings story. I think that's why I'm so moved by Lord of the Rings. It really has truth in it. I really see the world in that way, because it really is that way. It's simple and complex at the same time. And I see, when you look at, the lineage, and like how even Ishmael was blessed. Now, how the world been a different place, it wouldn't be like it is now. It wasn't just, blessings. Ishmael was blessed. You even see, even Abimelech, in a way, he spoke, God spoke to him. God spoke even to Balaam. I'm just saying, you see the whole lineage of it's like this, it's like an architectural, the blueprint of the whole world.
That's very true. He sets down patterns that he works within. Yeah, that's why I used to love, in school, I used to love math, because in algebra, especially, we would be given all these A plus Y, A plus B equals, we'd be given formulas, and the formulas would become more and more complex. And then it's like, to me, the Torah has all these formulas, all these that look like principles. And in school, we would be given all these different specs, and we'd have to apply them to the formulas. And if we learned, all we had to do was sit and really learn the formulas. When you sat down, you would recognize, oh, that's going to go fit into that formula really well. Well, it's the same with our life. If when things come up that are really difficult, we don't know how to make a decision about something, we can go to the Torah and find the answers. Very often, if we have good friends who live with the principles of Torah, who live with justice and righteousness, who are good people, who have good moral values, you go to them and ask for advice, and they draw from those formulas. We'll find the right answer, for our big problems in life. It all seems so simple, but it's very, very difficult to do. And it's like you said, it's a process. It was a process for Abraham to learn how to trust. And how many of us are tested the way Abraham was tested?
Well, I think it's hard to compare, because we may not be tested as dramatically, because we don't have the same role, but believe me, we've all had our tests.
Oh, that's for sure.
So some of them very, very strong
Exactly.
tests.
Exactly. And the whole thing about the thing that's difficult is when he says, "Do not fear." We live in a world where fear is running rampant. People are so afraid these days. But when we rely on the Lord, he's telling us, don't be afraid. I am with you. And yeah, Jerry, anything to add?
You want to answer a philosophical question?
Sure, if I can.
What's more important, person's life or a person's death? And the comment on this, Abraham lived a little over 100 years, and his death is living over 5,000 years to eternity.
Exactly. For us, as in Judaism, we don't celebrate birthdays as much as we remember the death of a person, because that's truly when we're truly born again, when we die. That's when we go to be with our Maker.
But it depends on what you do in the short time that you're alive here.
Yes. Well, what do you mean it depends on? What depends?
Well, the remembrance of your death is dependent upon the short time that you spend while you're alive.
For who? You mean the remembrance by the people who we leave behind?
But we're remembering Abraham 5,000 years. He was alive for 100 years, but we're remembering him 5,000 years.
Right.
So what I said, the question I asked earlier is I was just tabling a comment, which is more important. And of course, the life is more important because, it was a twisty type of a question that I did. Yeah. But anyhow.
Well, his life was to teach us how to live. That's what that one verse that I said, he would command his children, instruct them to do the right thing, to live a righteous and a just life, and teach that for future generations to live in justice and righteousness, to do the right things. And then the world is a better place if we had all done what he said.
But his life lived on eternally in death. His remembrance lived on eternally.
Well, that's a dual concept, because you have both. You have both, yes, in our memories, but also life is literally lived on after we die. The body goes to dust, but we have what makes our consciousness? What is the spirit, that the divine that is within us, the soul that God made us, will live forever. I don't know what happens to the soul after death. Nobody's come back to tell me, but I do know that there is life after death. I don't know what happens to the soul that lives a life of evil, great evil. What happens to the souls of people who have just spent their life murdering, like with the Hamas right now? What's going to happen to some of these people? I'm afraid for them. I don't know what happens to their soul. Does it just go into darkness? Is there a hell? Is there a burning flame forever? I don't know. But I don't know if that's the aspect you're looking at all.
No, I was just tabling a thought. That's all.
Well, because I know in Judaism they say, well, your soul lives on in the memory of the people, forever. But I think it's deeper than that.
Yeah, certain people in Judaism, they don't just say your soul lives on. They say your soul was, and will always be alive.
Yeah, I agree. I think God had us in his mind from the foundation of the world. But at one point in time, we were here. We were plopped into our families. You're going to live with this family, and you're going to learn how to live in that family. And
that makes the importance of our limited time so much more important when one realizes and acknowledges that what you do in this short time can have an eternal bearing on your entire memory.
Yeah. But not only that, have a bearing on the state of the world. Because I have a very simplistic, I have a mathematical mind, a very black and white linear mind sometimes. And I see that God is light. And when we do what is right and what is good, we bring light into the world. When we do what is wrong, we bring darkness into the world. And when the darkness outweighs the light, there's war, there's hopelessness, there's devastation. And so we hope that the balance would shift where there will be more light in the world so that we can have times of peace. Eventually, it'll get so bad, like it did in Sodom and Gomorrah, that God will destroy whole cities. There are other cities that have been destroyed. A large part of the world will be destroyed in the last war that they called the Armageddon or the Harmageddo. Some people think we're in it now. I personally don't. I think there's enough righteous people in the world that we're not at that place right now. But I don't know because I'm not God.
And table item 2.
Yes, sir.
Tabling item 2. Without darkness, there would be no meaning to light.
True. But eventually, I think we'll have known enough darkness, and God will say, okay, enough. Dayenu. It's enough. We've known enough darkness. Now let's live in the light. I don't know what our bodies will look like then. We may not.
Cocoon.
They may not. Like in Cocoon. Yeah, that movie. You see the movie Cocoon, Jerry? Do you remember it?
I did see the movie in the swimming pool, the cocoon, all that stuff. I don't remember it completely.
I love that
now.
Yeah. Well, what was in the cocoon was almost like a spiritual body that came out. And it was just, it was completely, they could read each other's thoughts. There was no hiding. Everything was, they were transparent beings. And
those movies, I think there were 2 of them. They moved me so much. I guess something inside me so responded to them.
Yeah.
To those 2. That
right. Yeah, we want to be like that. Well, we'll see. We have a lot to look forward to. We have a lot of hope, which is something that we need in this world. And we need to spread the light. We need to be good and kind, do as Abraham did, be just, live a life of justice and righteousness. We don't see a lot of that today. But in the midst of it all, God is still here, and he will not lift his hand off the planet, but he will allow us to experience the consequences of our behavior. We can't blame God. He didn't do this. We are doing it to ourselves. So, and with that, is there anything else that you'd like to add, Miriam?
Lots of thoughts. Some I'm not sure I want to say right now.
Okay. All right. Jerry, thank you so much. Jerry, do you want to read the Yivarechecha? We can finish with our Aaronic benediction, which was given through Aaron, our high priest, our first high priest.
The congregation might say, "May it be thy will, Lord our God, and God of our fathers, that the blessing which thou hast commanded to pronounce upon the people Israel may be a perfect blessing, forever free from stumbling and iniquity.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirishanu b'kdushaso shel Aaron, v'tzivanu levarech et amo Yisrael b'yahavo."
Amen.
Yevrechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. V'samu et shemi al bnei Yisrael v'ani arvorchem.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord shine his face upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance on us and give us peace. Lord, I pray for the people in Israel, for those suffering under terrorism and cruelty. I pray for our people around the world who are being targeted now just for being Jewish. I pray that our people en masse would turn back to God, would turn back to you, Lord, would call upon the name of the Lord like Abraham did. Let us see who you are, not become religious, but know that they can have a relationship with the living God, the creator of the universe, and that you would bless us as you blessed Abraham, as you promised Abraham, that we and all the nations of the earth will be blessed. Amen v'amen.
Amen. Can you hear that sign?
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Miriam, for your feedback. Thank you, Baruch. And we'll see you, God willing, next week for the next portion. And I look forward to seeing you on Shabbat.
Thank you.
You're
Bye-bye.
welcome. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.